This CodeVA Lunch and Learn series, recorded on July 14th, 2021, hosted an amazing panel of educators to talk about strategies for continuing computer science education efforts in a post-COVID world. Join us to learn about the inequities exposed by the pandemic and how to move forward in ensuring equitable access for all students. Panelists include Keisha, Tennesse, the Computer Science Coordinator for the Virginia Department of Education, Kristen Franklin, a former kindergarten teacher in Salem City and currently the CodeVA Integrated Curriculum Lead, and Joyce Matthews, a retired teacher and STEAM coordinator from Fairfax County Public School in Northern Virginia.
Back to our Lunch and Learn series. We're excited to have you again. So today we have a little bit of things that are happening for you. We're going to have a panel discussion, and so we're excited to have with us in the room with us an opportunity to hear from a couple different lenses around the idea of what now and the idea of continuing CS progress in a post-COVID world. If you are here and this is your first time with us, remember we're at this platform known as AirMeet. So this is a virtual platform that allows the opportunity to bring some of the more human elements back to our virtual space. So what that means is, as we're talking, we want you to be able to interact with us as much as possible. So there are some reactions at the bottom of your screen here when you see us talking. Let us know that you see those. Give us a little reaction to make sure you're there. And then also in the chat, if you are here, let us know who are you here. We'll take the next moments as we're doing some of our introductions to let us know who you're here with, maybe what training you're coming from, so that we can understand and know who's in our room and who's excited to be here. So with that being said, I will go ahead and do quick introductions of our lovely panelists that are here with us right now. All right. Awesome. We have Emily joining us as well. Great. Chesterfield County is here. Great. All right. So our first panelist is Joyce Matthews. And Joyce comes from us. Oh, excuse me 1 second. I want to make sure I get, there we go. Awesome. Hopefully you guys can see that. All right. Nice. Awesome. So our first panelist is Joyce Matthews. And Joyce is a former STEAM educator with the Fairfax County Schools. And so I want to give you guys just a little bit of info about Joyce here. All right. And so Joyce is now a retired teacher from Fairfax County Schools, public schools, excuse me. And she also wants to make sure that we know that she has been working with over 37 years of experience. She's always believed that all children can learn. Even before becoming an educator, Joyce loved working with children as a Girl Scout leader, trainer, and service unit member. After joining Fairfax County Public Schools, Joyce became a 4th, 6th grade, and 8th grade teacher, as well as a technology training specialist, and finally an extreme programs coordinator at the Braddock Elementary School. During her years as a Fairfax County Public Schools educator, Joyce has always focused on STEAM education. Joyce strongly believes that technology is the key to success for all students as they explore the opportunities of STEAM programs. Joyce will continue her efforts to involve all students in STEAM and computer science events and activities, encouraging them to be prepared for a STEAM career. Joyce was born in Washington, D.C. and lives in Bowie, Maryland, and located in Prince George's County, Maryland. All right. Our second panelist for us for today is Kristen Franklin, and I'm excited that she's able to be with her. She may be some of you all's actual instructor for this today or this week. So Kristen was born and raised in Roanoke, Virginia, and graduated with a BA and a Master's in Education from Virginia Tech. She enjoyed 16 wonderful years of teaching in Salem schools, most recently as a kindergarten teacher. Kristen also served as an instructional coach, which inspired her to earn her Ed Leadership Certificate. Her endorsement in ESL speaks to her passion for equity and diversity. Kristen has served in various capacities for CodeVA, including as a facilitator, curriculum writer, and project manager. She is now, excitedly to say, the full-time integrated curriculum lead for Code Virginia. Kristen loves learning, teaching, and leading and instilling a love for CS in others. And finally, we have Keisha, Tennesse. Keisha, Tennesse is the computer science coordinator for the Virginia Department of Education. She has over 10 years of classroom experience, as a career technical education background, and is a national board certified teacher and certified Scrum Master. Prior to her role at the Department of Education, she served as the computer science technology specialist at CodeVA Regional High School. While at CodeVA, she was instrumental in the development of the computer science program, provided professional development in the integration of computer science, and led computer science initiatives for students and families. In addition to Keisha's classroom experience, she has worked with organizations such as Code Virginia and the Computer Science Teacher Association to provide professional development focused on computer science. She has served on various writing committees for the National Education Association, Computer Science Micro-Credentials, and Virtual Virginia Computer Science Foundational courses. She believes that in today's modern society, computer science is a fundamental discipline for all students, and that every student should have an equitable and meaningful learning experience that utilizes computational thinking and strengthens one's own understanding and appreciation of computer science. So while I bring them to the stage, definitely show us some reactions and let us know that you're excited to see and hear what they have to say. Alrighty.
There we go.
Hi. Can't hear you, Brian.
Brian, we're unable to hear you.
So what I think Brian was trying to say was, can you get some sound, Brian? Sorry, guys, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Gotta love computer science. Not working. I can post some questions. You want me to do that?
Sure, Kristen.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start it off. So the pandemic exposed some inequities in education across the board. What are you all's thoughts on how not to go back to how things used to be, and instead, like, how can we progress?
Mm-hmm.
What do you all think?
Mm-hmm. I think for me, the observation has been the intentional focus that school divisions, not even the classroom teacher, but schools and school divisions really focus on the whole child. So it's no longer just the academic status, whether it's state assessments or so forth. It really was about the social and the emotional well-being of the child, their backgrounds, that partnership, really trying to dig deeper into all the other components that we receive on a daily basis, right, that make up a student. And I think that is truly important when I look through the lens of computer science and just understanding the backgrounds of the students that we are trying to encourage to embrace the field, whether as an occupation or take down the misconceptions of who computer science is for.
That's a wonderful answer. And guys in the audience, if you can give us some reaction so we make sure that you can at least hear us and see what's going on, so that we're not talking to ourselves, that would be fabulous. And as we are talking, feel free to make your own comments in the chat, and then we can also kind of respond to you.
Right.
Oh, good. We got one. I can hear you. So that's good. What about you, Joyce? How are you feeling about
that? As Brian said, my last 6 years of working at Braddock Elementary as their extreme program coordinator, which was coordinating STEM activities throughout the school, the number one problem was the inequity of our students having access to technology. Also, internet was really big. So for me and the parent liaison, we got right to work with finding those resources. Our school could give every child a laptop, but we couldn't guarantee that they had network. And so we went about contacting Cox. We all knew that Cox had free resources, and now it was Cox. We had to have Cox step up and really give out those resources. The other piece, as Keisha talked about, or listening to her bio, was our concern for our ESL students. We have a large population of ESL students in our school. And so also our parents really didn't understand this whole thing of school online. So working to make sure they understood that our children could get connected. Our children were used to using technology in the school, but it's a much different thing when you have to do it at home. So for me, it was assuring that our underserved, we also had homeless students, we could still keep them connected. That was our greatest concern. So we learned a lot about that. And even our governor realized that there were some inequities in technology access. And what are we going to do to make sure that doesn't happen? So now we have to close that gap, and we can't assume that everyone has access.
So do you all feel like moving forward, there are specific things that we should do in order to make sure that we don't fall back into the way things were?
Yeah. I mean, even though we may be going back to the building, I think that we still have to make sure that all these students have access to their technology. We don't know what's going to happen. And even when we return to school, there may be a time, we hope we're out of this pandemic, but I don't think we are. So we just have to make sure that if we have some short stances where we have to take laptops home, they have them, and that they can get connected right away and they can continue their learning. I just think that we're going to have to make sure in the future that our students can take their laptops home, just like they would take books home, and then connect if they need to connect.
I would say I absolutely agree with Joyce. That would be one of the main things that I think the pandemic overall highlighted, an area that we shouldn't go back to, which I would say hesitation. I don't think it's a surprise, right, that having technological devices is something that is helpful for learning, and many schools understood that, but there's so many other variables that kind of allowed the hesitation or the prioritization amongst other things. And when we were all forced to really prioritize some of those instructional needs, it was able to be done. Now, true, some of that is also just a national prioritization, right? So now schools have additional funding, and just really looking at what do we prioritize if we're really saying, student learning to meet modern society, what do students all need to be equipped with? So I think I just echo again, as Joyce said, just really knowing just really putting our money where our mouth is, right? We say that we're for the students and that these are the things they need to be: critical thinkers, collaborators, and all of that stuff. Well, some of that stuff just isn't free, right? And how do we help divisions that, say like Virginia, there's a wide range of the economic system that is in that area, and how do we make sure we are trying to equally distribute, a learning environment for all students so all of them can be successful.
Exactly.
So Christian, I pose that back to you. Since you just left the classroom, what are some things that you would recognize to say that, far as the pandemic as a whole, you don't want to return back to, or some positive highlights from the pandemic?
Well, honestly, I feel just like you all said, I feel like this highlighted how, bringing those one-to-one technological resources to our students was definitely obviously helpful. And I know in my school district in Salem, since it's such a small school district, they were able to provide Wi-Fi for the students that didn't have that. And but not everywhere. I mean, so many places that was not possible. But I think that just celebrating how so many teachers found ways to connect with their students and their families under such extreme circumstances, and they thrived. And yes, last year, it was a crazy year for everybody, but I saw so many teachers who said, I don't hardly know how to use a computer. They ended up creating wonderful pages to connect with the families and everything. And I think that people, both parents, students, and hi, Brian, both parents, families, and students, I think everyone has kind of gained a little bit more confidence with using technology as a tool for education. So hopefully we can now utilize that technology, and it will be easier to incorporate computer science moving forward.
Right.
So, Brian, you want to try out your sound?
Let's give it a go. Yes.
Yay!
No? Yay. No, that was a great conversation. I was like, maybe I can just stay out the whole time. Great job. Thank you, Kristen. And so that was really a really great way to start, because that was something we really wanted to identify. And that idea around the family piece is huge. And to your point, Keisha, about the idea of what is it that sort of those spaces and those environments are actually needing, because they're so different depending on where they are. So thinking about that particular piece, and I love that you guys highlighted some of the positives piece that came out of that. But what are some of the things that we want to leave behind with COVID and never want to pick up? What are some of those thought processes?
Well, I will say for Fairfax, the thought was at the beginning, if we can't get the online working, we would hand out packets. And you know how large we are. There was great concern about that, but there were some packets that were sent out. And again, when you're sending out a packet, it can't just be one packet for everyone, especially when you have diverse families. And we can't make the assumption that parents can read English. And so it's things like trying to send out one thing to take care of everyone. We need to leave that behind, and you need input from all departments. When you're thinking about your planning and how you're going to reach out, it really has to be diverse. And you have to think about all the different types of children and teachers that you have. So I'm hoping that there will be a group that comes together to kind of monitor. If we have to send something out, if we have to do something, what's the best way to do that?
That's a great point. Keisha or Kristen?
I definitely agree with that. Another angle of that I saw, moving towards the whole idea about differentiation, I saw issues with assessment. Sometimes there were students that you couldn't reach. you just couldn't get in touch with them. And I know that was happening all over the country. And, there were situations where students would be MIA and then they would turn up and might not have turned in anything. So then the question is, can they just do your assessment? And if they pass it, is that a passing grade? Are we really assessing for learning, or are we assessing for completion? I feel like that needs to be something that is addressed within education nationally, not just, district by district, and just focusing on the differentiation. And I think the idea of computer science really pulls that in, because it focuses on so much about, the computational thinking and the skills that we're trying to get these kids to do, that it's not so easy to assess sometimes in just one little, click the button, here you go. Like, you've got to show how you are doing these things, or, the project-based learning types of things. And so I think that the idea about assessment and differentiation is something that we need to keep in mind, and moving forward, we need to kind of address that.
And I would say my lens would be that the misconceptions that tools are the answers. And I think about this initially with the beginning part of the pandemic, right? Just buy some software and teachers will use it, and then magic will happen, right? But it's still that you need to provide those supports for teachers, because we really know the superstars of the educational realm of the pandemic wasn't Zoom, it wasn't Google Meet, it was the educators themselves and how they leverage those tools. And so that's what I think is something that we need to leave behind, which just goes to the misconception all the time that computer science is only about the tools and the gadgets, and really get to the heart of things, as Kristen pointed out, computational thinking, and really the ability to utilize that skills in a multitude of platforms.
I would take that one step further. And this, we might be losing you again, Brian. I don't know what you just said, but I will say that one other thing that I was thinking about, I know that this year was, not only were we dealing with the pandemic, but there was a lot going on politically. And I think that in some ways that impacted culturally relevant teaching. And, I think that sometimes that kind of went out the window, depending on how school systems were treating those political tensions. And I think that just being mindful of what the students need and what helps them to learn the best, and embracing diversity, it's going to be very, very pertinent moving forward in order to help these kids, no matter who they are and where they come from and everything. So it's just another point.
I think that's a really great point to bring up. I think, so to your all's point, and those are some really salient points that you guys just made, especially about the ideas of tools, and then actually the idea of making sure that we're bringing in the differentiation piece and the culturally relevant learning, or teaching rather. I wonder what that makes me think about is the idea of when we're talking about this idea of implementation, because we have this idea of a mandate from the state around this idea of integration for K. What does that look like in a space where all of these other pieces are happening, right? Where that's still a thing. So from you all's lenses and sort of different perspectives, what are some of the suggestions you might have for teachers that are looking to try and continue what progress has happened? So I'm going to go with Keisha first. So think about from the VDOE standpoint, how do you see the role of the VDOE sort of supporting teachers with this integration in their classrooms? And what can the VDOE do?
Yes, I find the fundamental role, or one of my fundamental responsibilities within this position, is to support educators with the instruction and the mandates and the requirements as it relates to computer science, right? So we're in a place that the computer science standards were adopted in 2017, and where it is now 2021, and the standards were to be fully in implementation by fall of 2019, right? And we know what happened spring of 2020. And so we have this expectation of these are the things we would like students to do. Well, how do we provide those support for educators to do these things? And I think from my lens, that's a part of my role. It's not just to collect a body of expertise and we design standards and say, this is what students need to know, but really guide teachers and give suggestions and recommendations of what this could look like. So a part of that is we have a listserv to send out information about professional development opportunities, be creative and think about grant opportunities as how you can advance computer science in different areas. This upcoming year, looking to have, informal coffee chats with educators, have integration webinar series from other teachers who are doing it in the classroom so we can learn from one another and get different perspectives. It doesn't always have to be from the DOE lens in the sense of we're in Central Virginia, right? There's other areas and other great things going on, and really giving a platform for people to see what other people are doing in other divisions. So I say it's really about giving those resources, whether it's the Go Open VA, where we've had teachers create lessons and being able to share those openly, freely, where teachers can modify that, encouraging participation with CodeVA and their professional development opportunities. That is a part of our role.
That's awesome, and that's really great to hear. And I'm sure folks would love to see some of those particular resources as well. So if you have links or things of that, we'll make sure to get those out to you as well. And so then, and Kristen, from the CodeVA side of things, as you've taken on a role of curriculum and done quite a few projects with us as well, how do you see that CodeVA curriculum or resources that we offer be able to support teachers on their CS journey?
Honestly, I feel like CodeVA is what started my entire journey with computer science. There are so many different PD programs that are offered through CodeVA, starting from people who have no clue what computer science is, all the way through people who are computer science teachers looking for different resources and different opportunities. We have things like launching CS, and that would be like for the very beginner, all the way through like a praxis prep type of courses and APCS. So there are things for people who are trying to learn how to code or to begin to teach their students coding. So there's all different types of resources that are offered as training sessions. Those are mainly during the summer, but then there are also things that we offer throughout the year that teachers can sign up for, things like this that you can come to, whether you're part of the trainings or not. And we're going to continue to offer those and send out resources and have those available for people as well. And on our website, there are different resources that teachers can access. And we even have things and opportunities for entire schools and school divisions, like the Amazon CS Ready Schools program. You can actually have your entire school sign up for that program. And if you're accepted, then you can help your school to develop their entire CS program and become a CS ready school. So I feel like CodeVA has something for everyone, no matter where they are on the spectrum of learning about computer science. And so I think that, not to mention, there's tons of us that you can reach out to, and we will help anyone at any time. Joyce nodding her head, like, we're around, we'll help you out. So there's something for everyone here. So
yeah. I think that's a really great point in sort of speaking about the spectrum of folks, or the continuum of people that are coming into the space. As you mentioned, folks that have no experience at all, to people who've been maybe have lots of experience in possibly doing that, and that there's a community for that as well. And to sort of Keisha's point, us as CodeVA being an opportunity to be a a sounding board or an opportunity to pass on information and resources that are going on as well is really helpful. And you've actually did a really nice job of pitching the fork to Joyce here, as I was actually going to ask Joyce all about the idea about that classroom space and its idea of what are you seeing teachers looking for? What is the idea that their need? And Joyce, since you all have participated in the Skills Ready program, you can maybe speak to us a little bit about what you saw your teachers needing in order to get going.
Yeah, and thank you so much for that opportunity. As Keisha said, we need the resources and we need support. And Co-Virginia has done a great job. But in the classroom, the teacher doesn't, our elementary school teachers are already overwhelmed, our middle school, our high school teachers, but they want to do this. But it's about having easy access and looking at where does it fit in. So you have to definitely meet and talk and have a forum for that. But teachers are looking for ways that they can slowly implement it and see how it works. And it works really well if a whole team, and that's what we're taking, a team approach. We have our coaches, our specialists who are looking at how can we integrate this and then work with the classroom teachers. And so teachers are willing to try anything, but it's about making it easy and making it accessible. Trainings, as Kristen said, are free. That's key. Our teachers cannot afford to pay for staff development. They just can't. They're doing too much already. And so if we can make it easy for them, and I was also thinking that maybe CodeVA can kind of create their own channel. Just think if we could videotape or just go into a classroom and watch what some of our colleagues are doing and post it, and so then a teacher, it's easy to watch a short little video of, I could set up a corner. Or, oh, wow, yeah, I could have the science teacher come in and work with me, or I could have a specialist come in and work with me. That's what I was looking for our teachers at Braddock. We as teachers, when we see something new, we feel like we have to be the experts. And so it's good if I can build a partnership and have people come in. And that's what I'm always doing, is inviting scientists, inviting engineers, people to come into the classroom when a teacher's teaching a certain topic and have that person there right with the teacher.
And can I just say something with that, Brian?
Sure.
As Joyce referenced, like the partnership piece, and I think a big proponent in trying to replicate the successes you see is really collecting the data on what's going on in the state of Virginia. Mm-hmm. And, there's recent legislation that also will require that. So all the educators in the room, there will be a survey that goes out to divisions and a survey that goes out to teachers to really see what are your needs. Mm-hmm. So these grant opportunities or these additional PD opportunities aren't just what other people in the room may think, but it's like, where are the resources needed? What are the ideas from the people we're asking to actually implement this? Right. So I can't agree with you more that we really need to build up that support.
Yes. Great.
That's great. And that's awesome to know. So again, the more resources that are coming out and available to get us more information about how we can meet the needs of the teachers that are there. And thank you for that. And I think the other thing that really makes us sort of think of now is this idea of implementation, and all of you all have experience with implementation of integration in your own classrooms. So what I'm really interested to know is, as we have people in the room that may or may not be familiar with it, may not tried it before, I'm interested to think about, from your experience, what was an example of a really great win that you identified in the classroom, or sort of thinking about it from that way, from the student perspective, where you saw, this was really great use of this, or this is why we should be doing this in some way, that propelled you to want to do it more? Or what was one of those times where you were like, yeah, this is probably not, this didn't go how I thought it would at all, and sort of thinking about, how do I regroup and sort of come back from this idea, but in that space. So there's going to be wins and there's going to be successes, but I just wonder, from your implementation and experience of that, what are some of the things that teachers can look forward to or be able to see?
Well, again, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Again, when you talk about looking for resources, I think sometimes as teachers, we forget our students could be resources. One of the greatest pieces for me with implementing computer science into even after school programs, it's nice when you can get the experts to come in, and we always think of adults, but we were lucky at Braddock to have Annandale High School right up the street. And further up the street is Thomas Jefferson. I will tell you that the TJ kids form clubs all the time, but the nice piece is they outreach. So I had students from Thomas Jefferson contacting me saying, we formed a club. We'd like to come over and talk with your students about computer science or about science and really get them motivated. It's nice that even our high school students are seeing that it has to start in the elementary school. So I'm glad that they're seeing that all the things we're doing for computer science, for STEM, it has to start, you started off in the elementary school. So here we have students who are volunteering their time to come back to the elementary school and work with the after school or summer programs that we have in place. And the best piece is watching those high school students work with the elementary school students. And even the elementary school students are showing our high school students some things that they've learned, and just to watch that interaction. So again, the teacher does not have to be the expert. You know, having students volunteer, and all of our students in Fairfax County have a community service requirement. So now I have that cycle, and that was part of my dream as that extreme coordinator of bringing this cycle together where students can learn from students, they can share, and just hearing all the time the high school students say, I wish we had a robotics club, or I wish I had had a computer science club. You know, what do you mean that elementary school kids are coding? You know, giving our students the opportunity to go out and also share in different forums, like at STEM events. I make sure that they are presenters. And it's so funny to watch adults walk up to us and say, your kids are coding? I thought that was a college thing, you know, that kind of thing. So we need to look at our students as resources. And we have a lot of elementary school kids who are coding and doing great things. You know, so they're sharing with one another, they're sharing with middle school students, with high school students. That's the cycle. That's what I wanted to see, you know, to create that resource right there, and having these students share what they're doing is awesome.
That's a great example. Kristen, you had something you were going to do?
Yeah, I definitely love that example. We did that a little bit, not to that extent, but we had the high schoolers come over and help throughout the elementary schools with like the hour of code before. And I would always try to have I worked with kindergarten most recently. So I would have my kindergarten kids show me things all the time. So sometimes I would use unplugged and plugged ways to do like an assessment, because in kindergarten, everything's all hands-on anyways. So for example, we were working on the seasons. And so, you know, I had some, like they were drawing the seasons and doing all those little things. And then we used Scratch Junior. Well, when I did this activity, I wasn't very familiar with Scratch Junior. So, you know, I could show them the basics, and then I was like, you're just going to have to figure it out and show me as you go, you know? And so one kid would be like, how do you do this? And then one kid would say, oh, I know how to do that. And I'd have them come up to the front and show everybody how to do that. And so they were really teaching each other how to do things. And the really cool thing that I kept seeing was that I had students who were really, really struggling in most everything that we were doing, but then certain tools or certain types of activities that we would do, they would just blossom. Like they would become the teacher. all of a sudden, I mean, they were like creating the most elaborate things on Scratch Junior, or they were able to show what they knew in a different way. And before knowing as much as I know now about computer science, I didn't always use all of these different ways of letting them show their knowledge. And so I think that that's something that I've seen.
I love that. That is awesome to think about. And that last sentence you said before that, I didn't necessarily think about all of these ways for them to show their knowledge. That's a really great one. Keisha, do you have an example?
I do have an example, but before I get to the example, I think one thing that's really highlighted there is the importance of computer science at the elementary level. I think when we look at the equity lens of computer science, it has to begin at the elementary level, because just the way our middle schools and our high schools are structured, that's where you get to that choice, right? And how do you equip students to make a choice if they've never been exposed to something? So I think that is the critical piece of the computer science element of elementary. That is key to the success for computer science in the state of Virginia. When I think about integration of a highlight, Kristen has her hand up.
I just want to say, and also teachers realizing when they're teaching computer science.
Yes. Hey, and that is exactly what my integration highlight was going to be. I was going to take the scope of a part of my job at CodeVA was to work with teachers designing lessons that were integrated and really giving them the moment to see, oh, this isn't all the way brand new. You know, like working with the teacher to say like, hey, when you're teaching Google Forms, you can be teaching conditionals in programming at the same time. You could be teaching loops at the same time. You could be teaching flowchart and planning all at the same time. And they're like, oh, okay, like this can go together. That goes together. That's really the significance that I've seen, just the impact too, with the teachers understanding the correlations, the connections, and the alignment that they can find in certain areas. And once the teacher has that aha moment, it's nothing stopping anybody else in the room. And so I think that's a pivotal part about the integration.
Yes.
That is so huge. And I love that you brought that home and sort of making it explicit about the teachers being aware of that and the idea that they can being explicit about what they're teaching as well, so that they can make it known and explicit to the students. And that's a really big piece there. So my question there then is thinking about, we've talked about a little bit about what are some of the successes and opportunities in implementation wise. What do you feel like are some of the things that students are really learning in this particular space? And we're thinking about sort of the K-5 area here. What are the things that you feel like students have learned since your implementation of, or since you've seen some of the integration pieces happen? And I'm doing a bad job of pointing out who goes first, so I'll do that this time. So it's okay. So Kristen, start. Can you give us a heads up on what that looks like?
Sure. So for me, I think that when I started becoming really intentional with my integration of computer science, and I just saw that their group work became so much better. They were learning how to communicate with each other. They were learning those important skills about problem solving, and not just on their own, but also communicating with someone else and being able to do that together. And that's such an important thing to learn in kindergarten and all the way through elementary, of course. But I feel like that was something that really stands out to me that I saw in my students, and I think was very key.
I think it's all about those connections. And for Fairfax County, we have buzzwords, and it's portrait of a graduate. What do we want students to know and be able to do when they graduate and go out into the workforce? And so it's the communication, the collaboration, being a resilient thinker. They're making those connections. But but also showing that they're also teachers at times, as Kristen said. It is a great thing when you see your students stand up and share with everyone else, or to say, oh, I can show you how to do that, or this is the way I did it. That is a great thing when you see them transfer that knowledge into skills. And so I think my students have become very resilient in what they do and how they do it. And they see that they have to share. And the important piece is in the workforce, they're going to work more with teams than as an individual. So we're giving them the opportunity to see how this all works, how that dynamic works of, I need to be able to share this project and what's my contribution to the project, but also where can I step in and help? Not just to stand back, but where can I really show what I've learned and how that can make a difference in a project? I think that's been very successful.
And I would just add to that the value and appreciation of creativity, right? Just really allowing students to see that there's multiple ways to show something, right? Everything isn't about right or wrong or good or bad, right? Your creativity and what you have to contribute is equally important, as long as we get to the core of what we're trying to gain from that. And so that's what I think is one of the most powerful things students have been able to.
I love that. Those are all really great answers. And what I want to do now with the few minutes that we have left, if there are any questions that people have in the actual chat, we'll go ahead and please drop them in, and we can see if we can get them to be answered. Again, we do have basically K through 12 represented right here in this particular room, which is really awesome. Again, from the state level to the curriculum writing lens, as well as the classroom space. So we just wanted to make sure, if you have a question, go ahead and drop those in. With that being said, guys, I want to give you an opportunity right before we leave. Are there anything, sort of nuggets or ideas or pieces that you want to sort of leave the folks in this particular room as they go on their journey of CS and starting to look at how they might be able to do this in their classroom? So I'll give you a second to kind of think about that, and we'll start with you, Joyce.
Just to ask questions. I am a big proponent of asking and reaching out. And again, we're always, as educators, looking for resources. And I have to just, again, thank Code Virginia for being a great resource. So many times, Brian, I've reached out to you and said, where can I find out about this? Or who can help me with this? And so definitely I don't want anyone to feel that they're alone, that they can't do it because they just cannot find the resources. Utilize the resources, ask questions, reach out. Even if you don't get a response right away, keep asking.
That is powerful for sure. Keisha?
I just want to echo that, along with a brief disclaimer that as a former CodeVA facilitator, a part of those resources are the facilitators that you're working with for your training sessions. They are always there to help you along the way. Within my current role, I am available to assist you if you are somewhere where you're like, hey, I'm eager to implement computer science, but perhaps my administrators or someone else in the division. That's a part of my role as the DOE, to help the division see how they can implement it within their division. So that's just another element to keep in mind. I will say, go ahead, start today, get your feet wet, get acclimated to what's out there. The standards are coming up for revision in 2024. So keep that in mind. And as we look towards revision, we're looking towards data science, artificial intelligence. So all of that is coming down the pipeline. So get started today. And again, I'm a resource, CodeVA, of course. And again, form your community groups out of the people you're participating in the training sessions with. Join your local CSTA chapters. They will be a great resource.
All right. Kristen, close us out.
I would just say, don't be afraid to fail, because trying means you're not failing. basically. And, you know, you might start out thinking, I don't know how I'm supposed to work these computer science standards in with my core content. And you might just start out doing one thing. If you just take the smallest baby step, just trying something. I know there's already been so much thrown at everyone this past year. I know when I talked with some of my coworkers this past year, incorporating computer science was one of the last things they were thinking about. And then they were like, well, maybe I've been doing some of that because I have been teaching online and I have been doing this and that, you know. So once we were talking about it and realizing some of the things that they were already doing, I think just don't be afraid to try, don't be afraid to fail, and you don't have to be perfect at it the first time you try it, because I know a lot of teachers, like Joyce said, you know, you get something, you feel like you should know how to do all of this because you are the teacher, but it's not that way with computer science because these are new standards for us. So we are learning, and it's okay to learn along with the kids.
Awesome. Well, thank you all again for joining us. Thank you, Keisha. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Kristen, for being great panelists and even sometimes co-host in terms of what's happened here. Thank you again. That's a great conversation. If you guys enjoyed it, we'll continue to have more of these.